It started with a smell, not the faint passing whiff of something unpleasant, but a wall of stench so thick it clung to your clothes and seemed to coat your tongue. In the summer of 1858, London's River Thames turned into a slow-moving soup of human waste, rotting animal carcasses and factory runoff. The heat baked it into something almost alive. The newspapers didn't need to exaggerate. Everyone already knew the city reeked. London's growth had been explosive. In just a few decades, its population swelled past 2 million. Flush toilets, the height of modern comfort, were becoming common, but the city's waste system was still medieval. Most sewage flowed directly into the Thames. Smaller rivers that once ran clear, like the Fleet and the Tyburn, had become open sewers feeding into the main artery. The Thames wasn't just dirty. It was the dumping ground for almost everything London wanted to forget. People had complained for years, but summer 1858 turned discomfort into crisis. Weeks of intense heat shrank the water level, concentrating the filth. The air around the river grew so foul it made eyes water and stomachs churn. Theories about disease still centered on miasma, bad air carrying sickness. So the stench didn't just disgust people, it terrified them. Even Parliament couldn't escape. The newly built Houses of Parliament sat right on the riverbank, and when the wind shifted, the smell rolled in through open windows. MPs stuffed curtains with lime-soaked cloth in a desperate attempt to mask the odor, but it didn't help. Some simply refused to stay. Government business slowed to a crawl, not because of political deadlock, but because no one could stand to be in the chamber. By July, it became impossible to ignore. Here's where it gets strange. What decades of cholera outbreaks hadn't achieved, a single summer of bad smell did. Parliament moved faster than it had in years, passing legislation in just over 2 weeks to completely rebuild the city's sewage system. And they handed the task to a man named Joseph Bazalgette. Bazalgette was a civil engineer with both vision and persistence. His plan was massive, hundreds of miles of street-level sewers feeding into nearly 100 miles of enormous brick tunnels running parallel to the river. These interceptor sewers would catch the waste before it reached the Thames and carry it east, away from the heart of the city. In low-lying areas, steam-driven pumping stations would lift the sewage so gravity could take it the rest of the way. The work also transformed the riverfront. New embankments, Victoria, Chelsea and Albert, were built above the hidden sewers, reclaiming land and adding wide roads and walkways. The pumping stations themselves were built like cathedrals of industry, grand and ornate, as if to show that public health was worth celebrating. Before we get to the end of this story, here's a thought. If you've ever seen a quick fix turn into a long-term upgrade, you'll want to hear how Bazalgette future-proofed London. Stick around because his foresight still affects the city today. Bazalgette calculated the capacity of his tunnels based on the needs of the current population, then doubled it, just in case. That decision meant his Victorian system could handle the demands of a 20th century city. It's still in use today, more than 160 years later, with some upgrades. And while the project wasn't designed to fight waterborne diseases, it accidentally solved one of London's deadliest problems. With the sewage diverted, cholera outbreaks virtually disappeared. The Great Stink is often told as a quirky footnote in history, but it was really a turning point. A moment when disgust forced action and engineering reshaped a city's future. And here's the modern parallel. Cities today still face problems we all agree are awful. Pollution, crumbling infrastructure, contaminated water. Yet action often waits until the crisis is so close we can smell it. In 1858, the air in London pushed leaders to act in weeks. Imagine if we could apply that same urgency before the smell hits.